We're live. Moto Monday, and we're with Scot Steffy. The man, the myth, the legend.
All in my own mind.
The goggle guy, Viral brand. How's it going, man?
It's going good.
We've already almost done an entire podcast before we got started here, just talking.
I'm a talker.
This one's going to be fun. So this is 132 presented by Viral Brand. If you guys want to check them out, check out Viral Brand on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And Mini Gladiators. If you guys want to learn about pit bikes, minigladiators.com or at Mini Gladiators on Instagram. Northwest pit bike scene, the OG oldest pit bike group that I helped run. I'm co-founder of that, and I got to say it's still a fun time. Even all the different broken bones I've gotten from pit bikes, I got to say, they're a lot of fun. And yeah, this podcast has potatoes on it. We do a little thing every week where you got to guess the vegetable that we bring today. I haven't named the potatoes, but we have potatoes on here. If you guys are watching, you can see them. If you're listening, I'm sorry you don't get to see the potatoes, but yeah, we have potatoes on here. And some Viral Brand goggles, which you guys came out with a new series this year, right?
Yeah. We took the COVID and decided to rebrand the entire brand from kind of top to bottom, and more colorways, and we have our new UTV series goggle, which is designed around the UTV, the guys that run side by sides in the desert and that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. Less dollars.
Oh, and really?
Yep. Changed our rookie series goggle now as a comp series goggle.
Okay.
So that's more of a name change. Bold new graphics.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I didn't do a proper introduction, but I feel like a lot of people in the Northwest already know who you are. You've been around. You've been racing for a while, Scott. You've been working in the industry for quite a while as well. So you were a professional racer for a few years, and then what are some of the job titles?
I went to work for a dealership, kind of in the early in 90. I went to work for a dealership. I became their sales manager there, and then kind of GM'd there a little bit.
Okay.
That was Everett Suzuki Kawasaki, and then went from there. I wanted to get into doing the repping thing, so I went out and kind of became a independent rep for a little bit, and then I wanted to get more on the national stage, right? So I wanted to do stuff kind of on the national level, do the Supercross, travel the Supercrosses and stuff, and became the sales manager for HRP Sports, and kind of ran their sales department and worked with their athletes and stuff, and did that for a couple of years.
When were you with HRP?
I was with HRP 98, 99. So right around
back when HRP was, okay, so this is when they were coming out with the chrome shoulder pads.
Correct. Yep.
That just blew everyone away. Only the fast kids had the chrome shoulder pads back in the day.
Yeah.
And then they came out with the blue chrome and the colored chrome. I mean, that was hot stuff. If you had that in the thing on the helmet, the wing.
The wing. Yeah.
The original Troy Lee wing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were fast.
You were fast. And it was cool about that is that Luke, it's a cool story. HRP Sports was Hanna Racing Products originally. Mm-hmm. And that company, which was owned by Bob Hanna, ended up folding. And Luke Janaitis, who owns HRP Sports now, his dad was the mold guy who made all the molds. And his dad had thrown them in the garbage. And
really?
Yeah, and Luke went out there as a kid and pulled them out of the garbage and said, hey, I want to start this company back up again. And they kind of revamped it, came out with the chromes and some other, because his dad had done some funky things with it. His dad tried to make it work a little bit, and had done some, I don't know if you remember when they had like the kind of the red chests and the kind of like see-through red chests.
Yep. And then they had the smoke.
Yeah.
And wasn't Hanna or HRP the first ones to come out with the floating shoulder pads?
They were, yeah.
They invented that, which made it way more comfortable than the old school chest protectors that were just chafing and yeah.
People listening today probably have no idea, but
they don't even run them anymore.
The JT chest protector back there was like locking yourself in a cage of plastic. It was horrible. And these, you could actually wear them, and they didn't feel like they really bothered you, and they were comfortable, and you could move in them, and they were great. It was a lot of fun, and I got a chance to work with a lot of riders. Got a chance to Travis Pastrana. I got to meet him. Don't really know him, but I knew at the time when he was a kid, got to know him a little bit, and him and K-Dub, and then we also did Levanovich and Sarah Whitmore and a bunch of those guys. I helped kind of bring them on. Kenny Bartram, who actually works for Viral Brand now. He was part of that early HRP days and stuff. It was pretty cool. It was fun.
Yeah, that's a throwback because you don't see the name out there as much today. You also don't see a lot of chest protectors being worn today.
No.
But man, back when I was really getting into racing, like the guys who had the HRPs, they were all fresh and clean with the chrome shoulder pads.
Yeah.
You were somebody cool.
Yeah.
It was such a statement. If you had baggies in the wing, baggies where I had like 2 years of awesomeness. And
No. I wore baggies in '99. I worked for SMP for a short time.
What?
Yeah, it was a disaster.
You worked for SMP?
I did. I worked for SMP. Yeah, I did them for about a year. And I wore the SMP gear. I actually did a national in SMP gear. Finished 4th in my qualifier. Beat Sebastian Waugh, and I'm pretty sure he was I think he went back and was pretty much crying because he was like, some guy in baggy pants just beat me.
That was a short fad, and people are trying to bring it back. I actually still have a set of the Troy Lee baggies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the greatest idea.
I think they're horrible, and it's snowboarding is what it is, right? That's where it came from.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. So
it was cool for a hot minute, and then it's probably for the best that it went away. One day I might bust out a set of.
What's that? Oh.
We gotta fix the mic here real quick.
Okay, hang on a sec here.
But it was cool for a minute. It's cool to look back on, but I don't really miss it.
No.
Let's put it that way.
No, unfortunately, it was one of those things where, let me fix this microphone here really quick.
Oh, no worries.
But it was one of those things where you kind of, I was selling it, so I wanted to wear it. And then I did it with JT as well. I sold JT for a while. And was kind of the same thing. It was just the baggy stuff just wasn't super cool. You know, a lot of guys liked it at the time. The whole thing started with Mike Metzger and he wore the big down vests, with no arms and and so that was a whole Crusty Demons of Dirt era.
Yep.
And it was kind of funny because when we were kids racing and you'd travel around the country, I was doing Supercross and stuff. Matasevich and a bunch of the guys that were racing Supercross at the time were making these crazy like mall videos. So they'd go to the mall with their video cameras and then they'd go out to the dirt bike thing. They make these kind of homemade movies. And it was kind of the early Crusty Demons of Dirt. They weren't producing them. And then Metzger and all those guys made that stuff and it just blew up and went crazy.
Yeah, some of that old school Crusty original Terra Firma stuff was raw. Like super raw.
Yeah, I wish I could have got involved with some of that stuff. I never did. Smale did. My buddy Lance did some of that stuff. But I was never been to that stuff. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who kind of were in the first couple and then faded out, disappeared.
Yeah.
And then there's some people stuck it out. And I mean, look at where Deegan is today.
Oh, jeez.
He's doing just fine.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
Yeah, he really took that. I mean, he took that bull by the horns and was like, all right, let's roll. And he's built an empire.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything he touches right now has been gold. Look at his kids. His kids are gold. I mean, his daughter, right, doing the NASCAR thing, his son's coming up. I mean, they kind of have a formula, and it's pretty awesome to watch.
A lot of people think of him as the old school, like that spiked shoulder pad guy, but he ain't a dummy.
No.
He had a plan.
Yes.
And people don't give him enough credit for the amount of work he's put in and sticking to his plan. He's built up his own little empire,
Yes, he has. He's got a pretty cool facility. I haven't been out there, but I know that my business partner has been out to his place a couple times and seen it. It's pretty awesome. And one of our mechanics used to do some stuff for him over there as well. So that worked for the Barn Pros team. So
let's lead into, so where did Viral come from? Viral Brand.
Oh, well, so Viral Brand started, goggles have been a passion of mine since I was a little kid. And
I only think there's a few people that can say that.
Yeah, well, here's a funny, this is kind of how Viral came from the Barn Pros team. Okay, but it started with my dad. So when I was a kid, I was riding intermediate class, maybe junior, I forget what it was now, but I was out front of this moto and I was gone. I was checked out. And it was a muddy race at ORV Park in Olympia. And I had run out of tear-offs And so I came around one lap and I just hucked my goggles to my dad. Came around the next lap and there was like only maybe a lap or two left. And my dad just pulls me off the track, sends me back to the pits. And I was just like kind of losing my mind. And he just looked at me dead flat and just said, you can always race another moto, you can never get another eye. And so at that point, he never allowed me to pull my goggles. And so I started running double pane lenses back then. We raced Woodland and winter all the time. Learned how to, did roll-offs, and I just basically started prepping my goggles pretty insanely. And then as I got older and I started racing Supercross, kind of the same thing. I was always super particular about my goggles. So when we had an opportunity, when Steve and I were talking about a product that we could bring for, kind of bring into the team, that would make a little more sense than Barnes, we came up with the idea, or I came up with the idea for the goggles, pitched to Steve, and we kind of looked at it and said, yeah, this would be great. And so we started off like most companies with a open source mold. We just bought a mold from China and started making goggles, and then slowly but surely developed our own goggle to what we have today, which is our own mold and our own design and a lot of stuff that goes into our goggles that are kind of our goggles. They're still built around an open source mold, but it's actually our mold, so which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see. It's something you don't see a ton of people jump into it. There's a lot that goes into making a good goggle. And I could tell you, that's funny that you bring it up, that running a moto without your goggles, I actually almost lost an eye once riding at Hindsight MX, and only 6 people there, and the sun was kind of shining weird in through windows. I took my goggles off, and sure enough, a couple laps later, some guy just rolled a double, hit the gas, took a dirt claw to the eye, actually ended up passing out, KO'd me. I was able to kind of steer off the track, and I fell off the side of the bike and got up, and my entire eye was red.
Oh.
And it took 6 months of seeing an eye doctor, steroids, wearing an eye patch like a pirate. Yeah. And that's when I was like, I should probably keep the goggles on, because that would not have happened.
Yeah. Well, Tony DiStefano, not a racing incident, but he lost an eye, and it basically ended his racing career. And Tony DiStefano, for those guys, he's an old motocross guy. He's a factory Suzuki. Had the Tony D schools, but his career came to an end because of an eye injury. And people don't realize how, kids are young and we're all invincible, right? And you never think of something small like a rock, like a little tiny rock, not a big one, like a little one, could end your racing career, And so your goggle prep and all that stuff is really, really important. And so that's what we started with. We have plans for better goggles in the future and growing the company and being, something that's people really want to wear. But the first thing we did with our goggles, we wanted to make them fit really, really well. And so that's what we really went after, is the fit part of it. So we offer a money back guarantee on fit, and we've sold over 10,000 plus goggles with like 2 returns ever, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I wear them myself. I'm excited to try some of the new ones, and I like the colors. What do we got? Like a cyan one here, one of my favorite colors. We've got some blacks, oranges. Yeah. Now, you guys back in the day used to go kind of wild with like some of the colors, like splatter look going on. Yeah. So when we first started it, the first company we went with, they had the design we got were some kind of stock splatter frames, stuff that we had. It was kind of cool. Mirrored lenses, that kind of stuff. Frames were the manufacturer was not very good. And I don't know if you ever had a pair break, but I had a pair break on me. You'd be riding along and the strap would just pop off. And the curing was wrong on a batch that we got. And so we made the decision pretty quickly to get rid of that goggle. We never even took that goggle to market. We sold it to consumers and basically just learned a lot about the goggle market, right? Because there's a big difference from racing in the 80s and 90s to starting a goggle company in 2015. So I wanted to learn as much as I could. So that first goggle, we learned a ton about it. And then from there, we started going out with the outriggers. We ran into a small little problem in the very beginning of our outrigger goggle. And but when we launched in basically April of 18, when we started going out to dealers, and we've got about 200 dealers in the country right now, heavy on the East Coast right now. East Coast has been doing really well for us. Got Kenny Bartram, I think it was earlier, as I said, Kenny's like my number one sales guy. Cowboy Kenny.
Kills it. The guy is on fire all the time. So, which is pretty fun.
Dude, if he's ever in town,
Yeah.
you need to tell him he needs to come hang out with us and do a podcast.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That would be a fun podcast.
Oh yeah, he's a character.
And if he will bring his cousin Dennis along, bonus points.
Bonus points.
I want. That's one guy I want to sit down and talk pit bikes with. I don't know if you've seen some of the pit bike stuff he's done.
No, I haven't.
He has the current world record,
Oh, is he the jumper?
139 feet on a Chinese extreme, like 110.
Do you remember the UPCs?
Oh yes.
I used to sell those.
Really?
Yeah,
Man, so what have you not done? Because I think the first time I met you face to face was Washougal in the Casilla days.
Yeah.
And because I broke one of the on-road 125 things by Huck and Chuck Sun Jump.
Probably. So after I transitioned from HRP, I went to work for an oil manufacturer,
Okay.
and I did that. It was a two-stroke manufacturer as two-strokes were going away, and plus it was owned by a very controversial gentleman by the name of Ken Lay, who owned Enron, and so him and his son and his stepson had started this oil company, and part of that, when they bought the company, there was a motorcycle division.
Okay.
They didn't know anything about motorcycles.
Okay.
So they hired me to run that division for them. Okay. And we did it quite a bit with it. We got into Western Power Sports carries the product. It's called Blue Marble Oil. It was yeah. So I was national sales director for them for a couple of years. When Ken got indicted, and actually arrested, then they basically shed everybody that was non-family from the company. And I went to work. I left there and went to work for a couple small motorcycle manufacturers, Chinese guys. UPC was one of them.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's funny. I actually had a UPC, half of a UPC bike. I put different parts and stuff on.
Yeah.
They had a cool looking like billet frame thing with all the holes in it and everything.
Yeah. They were actually super cool.
They had the bling down so well.
So my son coming up, when he was little, just getting into racing, I had UPCs just all over the place. I had like 7 or 8 of them. So I'd take him out to the track in the trailer, and all of his friends would go out and ride their dirt bikes, or motocross bikes, YZ80s, and then they'd hop on these and they would moto like madmen for like an hour straight on these UPCs. It was pretty fun. They were a lot of fun, but like anything Chinese, they break.
Well,
so
yeah, that was the Wild West days of pit bikes, when literally every other week there's a new brand that popped up. There was this, there was that. BBR has a new frame. Then we got Pitster Pro, we got Extreme, we got SSR, then we had the Medinas, and then there was
Thumpstar.
Thumpstar's still around.
Yeah, well, Thumpstar and UPC were the same company.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well, let's be real, most of them came from the same factory anyways, which caused a lot of drama back in the day when Medina and Pitster had the same bike. Medina was importing them as incomplete bikes. They'd take the engine out, so you buy them as a roller. So they wouldn't pay the same import fees.
Yeah.
And they could also sell them without needing all the licensing and everything. And they would sell a Pitster that would go for like $23.95 for $1,000. And there was a lot of pit bike drama back in the day when that came out. And then there was, it was kind of wild to see. There was Vinco. Vinco was one I missed. They were actually American made, and they were taking CR80 forks, chopping them down, and doing all sorts of wild. And they 2-part frames, half chromoly, half billet aluminum.
Yeah.
They were bolted in the middle. All sorts of weird stuff, and seeing.
When we started before pit bikes took off, Dwayne, we started out at the motocross, the Monroe Arena crosses.
Yep.
We started this little deal, and he said, "Hey, how many guys do you need to get a class?" So we went out and bought these rat bikes, and the rat bike thing actually started at Lance Smale's cabin up in Easton. We used to go up to Smale's cabin every once in a while. We take all the cars in the middle of the night, park them around his driveway. It was a circle driveway. We'd go out there and ride pit bikes and just beat the crap out of each other, right?
Lance can mob a mini bike.
Yeah. And so we ended up, myself and Larry Keebler, who worked for BBR for years, my mechanic Stain Strom, who I went to high school with and traveled with me forever, and then Gary Strode. And Strode always had this 200, XR 200, and he could jump everything. So he would just leave, and the rest of us would just battle it out. Well, the first weekend there was 5 of us. Then Ten Duval came in. Ten Duval brought an XR 350.
What?
Yep. So it was a 4-stroke class, because at the time there was no 4 strokes. So then we started getting KTM 440s in there, KTM 650, but it was always the same people winning. Myself, Larry, and Strode would be gone on his 200. We would be racing for second, third, fourth, and then Ted Duvall was there, and we beat Ted. Sorry, Ted, but we beat Ted on our X100s against him on his 350s, and it was a blast. Matter of fact, if you go back to some of the old motocross magazines, the local ones, they used to do stories on us all the time because we'd have qualifiers to get into the races for the main events of the XR100 class or the 4-stroke class back in the day. It was a blast. Matter of fact, I just posted a picture the other day on my personal of me hole shotting at Monroe. Me and Larry Keebler going in the first corner, but Dwayne would come out for BBR, and he built his very first BBR bike and brought it out and raced with us up in Vancouver, Canada, up in the Astrodome. Or
Really?
I forget what they call that place up there, whatever that, BC Palace or BC Place.
I don't know. I've never been.
Yeah, so there's a big dome up there that's all air, and you go up there and we would do the monster truck show up there. Well, they did it. They let us have a pit bike race in the middle of in front of like 60,000 fans.
Nice.
And, yeah, I went up there and just had a blast. So the pit bike thing was a lot of fun. I loved doing that. I actually liked racing that class better than I liked racing the pro class for a while. It was way more fun.
It's a little more laid back. You can only take yourself so serious being on a little kid's bike. Like, anyone who takes it too serious at that point, you got issues. Like, it's fun. It's fun.
Well, I got into it enough that I drove to LA with my XR1. My mechanic ended up buying Dwayne's very first YZ80 pit bike. So it was a YZ80 framed bike with an XR100 motor in it with a 120 power roll motor in it. And back in the day, Jimmy Lewis was like the head in California. He was like the head guy, right? So I went down there and I had a blast, but went right around Lewis in practice, was racing with like Ray Crum. He was on a 660 KTM. We were at Glen Helen and we were all practicing for the 4-stroke nationals. They let us XR100 guys go out with them on a practice day. And so down the lower section, I was mobbing on that thing. And Crum was making fun of me because I passed him in the lower section, right? And then, of course, he just yarded me when he got to horsepower. And but I ended up crashing and breaking the frame on the bike that I was riding. And I ended up riding Larry Keebler's stock XR100. And ended up leading every single moto down. There was 28 or 30 of us in the XR100 Pro class. And ended up leading every moto and ended up getting second overall down there. It was a blast. Total blast.
Man, I gotta say, yeah, those things are so much fun. I did have an XR100. I might have broken every possible piece on it that you can break. I currently do have a CR80 big wheel with the TTR engine.
Oh, there you go.
That's fun because good components, BBR built, not very fast at all, like at all, but you can just run it wide open and all day. And I put, it's my little claim to fame, I have carbon fiber bars on it.
Oh.
So
nice.
You can literally like push them and move them.
Who manufactured those?
Twisted Engineering over on the East Coast.
Oh, wow.
They're not cheap. They're like $340, I want to say.
Okay.
And you can pick how stiff you want them. And I originally put them on my woods bike because if you jump with these bars, not working because they will flatten on you.
Oh, wow.
But if you want to put them on like that kind of pit bike or something in the woods, man, that helps arm pump. So slow bike, carbon bars. You can just go, run out of gas, fill it up, and just keep going. All right. I enjoy that one.
That's super cool.
You could probably put 400 hours on a TTR piston. It'd be good.
Yeah. You can run a TTR bike forever and ever. Those when they started getting the bikes smaller and smaller, is when I lost interest because I'm already kind of a big guy, and I haven't been thin for quite a while. So you start getting into those bikes, my knees were hitting. I went out to, used to be a track out behind the prison in Monroe, which was MXGP. And they had
I've ridden there.
Yeah. And
that was a fun track.
That was a cool track. Well, John Beal owned it originally, then Gary Strode took it over, made a really cool facility out of it. It was pretty fun. They had an XR100 race there, BBR put it on. Or sorry, XR race, or a mini moto race. Out there.
I was there.
Yeah.
Sweet Bud, right?
And
was it Sweet Bud? The Sweet family helped put it on. They sold the kettle corn.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because I went there, and because they had a pro purse, and there was pit bikes everywhere.
I tried racing at UPC there, and I just couldn't. I couldn't handle the bike being so small.
Wait, did you have like an easy up and everything there for UPC?
Yeah, I had the whole easy up and everything.
Okay, yep.
And I had like had five
Yep.
of them there. I had a bunch of kids racing them for me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, my kid actually raced that one, like that 50 class or whatever, or not 50 class, whatever the age group thing that they had for him.
I actually was, I wrote the Cycle News article for that race.
Oh.
I have pictures of little Tyler Hansen racing 50s and 110s out there when he's like literally like, he was tiny back then.
Yeah.
That's funny, yeah. I was at that race.
Yeah, so I did a lot of the pit bike stuff. That's why it's fun. Like, when Larry Keebler, he was at BBR till just about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, and he, like anything, like when you start racing anything, it starts out as a junker bike, then it starts out and you put a little bit into it, and then next thing you know, you got a $10,000 pit bike in your garage, right?
I'm well aware.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like the fun part about the racing originally was I had a double shock bike. I had an XL 100 double shocker that I raced all the time, and it blew smoke like you wouldn't believe. Like, it filled the entire Monroe Arena Cross area with smoke. But it was just a beast. Slow. I'd jump everything on it. I went through frames like every other weekend. I had to find another frame for it. That was a blast.
Well, aren't they fun? I want Dwayne's, what does he have, XR75?
Who's that?
Dwayne Brown. His main bike he always takes everywhere. I think it's an XR75 he punched out. He put an XR120 in.
I don't know. Remember Willie Surratt? You know who Ryan Surratt is?
Yeah.
Willie Surratt was like a phenom back in like the 80s. And we went to his house years ago. Smale and I went down there for something. I can't remember what we were doing. But he had all of these unbelievably trick XR75s, big suspension, big power roll motors, because those were what they raced back in the day. And he still had them in the garage.
Oh, dude.
They were super cool.
I would kill for one of those. You can't find them.
No. Those are super cool.
There's a few bikes that you just literally don't find because there's like those collector dudes out there. For example, in Clark County, you can't find an ATC 70 because someone actually had on the podcast here, a buddy of mine, Zach, if you're watching, I know you are. He's bought, I swear, every single one. He just lines them up, punches some of them out, and big bores them. He actually raced our Pit Bike National. He put a 140 in his, and he beat Preston Baseflew on a full BBR bike.
Did you really?
Preston came back the next moto and got him.
Yeah.
But he had to work for a couple laps.
That's a kid that's going fast.
Let's just talk about how we got some fast boys coming from the Northwest now.
Yeah, we do.
I think a lot of the United States underestimates some of the guys that we have come out of here.
Well, so if you look back at history, I'm an old guy now, right? So you start looking back. The very first year of Supercross, 1972, Jim Pomeroy's brother finished second at the round one. He's from
Brian?
Yakima. Ron's not Ron. What was his name? Pomeroy. I forget Ron Pomeroy. It was Ron Pomeroy.
Was it Ron? Okay.
Yeah. If you go to what's cool, they have the vault.
Yeah.
Right. You can go to the
love
vault.
that.
Oh yeah, I get lost in that thing at times,
Yes.
right? But you can go to the vault and go back, and you can go back by venue and by year, and you can look at all the Washington riders that were podium guys in the first year of Supercross, and then you look at the Outdoor Nationals where you had Rick Burgett, you had Chuck Sun, all Northwest guys. Fast forward a little bit farther, you got Larry Ward. My generation was Larry Ward, Lance Smale, myself, and I never had any of the accomplishments that those guys did, right? But, I was a Supercross main event guy all the time. You had Brett DeVries, you had like Oregon guys like Mike Bell and Gary Beyer, and you had all of these guys that were really fast that were making Supercross main events on a weekly basis. And then you had a local race, and we were all racing each other every single weekend.
Yep.
And you can't forget the Canadians. Right, we used to have Daryl Martins, Alan Dick, Steve Friesen. They were all making Supercross main events and coming down to Woodland. Woodland was like a national, like almost every time you go to Woodland. And then Brett DeVries, same time. Tony Graves,
Brian Villapoto, and Josh Hill.
Yeah,
that's my era. Watching those guys on 85s and like, just destroying everybody. And then once in a while, Haberlock would jump in, and you got a three-man battle that just leaves everyone.
Oh, yeah, but and then you had, in between those guys, you had McCormick and Huffman.
Yes.
Right?
I was going to go there, yes.
And Huffman was great, but McCormick, man, at times, that kid was as fast as anybody. And, you know, the other guy that gets overlooked, I think, and somebody you should probably get on the show, but is Eric Eaton. That guy I mean, when you say the word David Bailey, right, to anybody that's been around the motorcycle scene, there's never been a better rider, better style, better results. I mean, he was the guy, right? Eric Eaton beat him in 1984 in the series for second overall. Brock Glover, Eric Eaton, David Bailey. I mean, that is almost as great as the Ryan Villapotos and the stuff that was happening. And the crazy part, he did it as a privateer. That's even crazier. So.
Oh, I'd be down. I got a laundry list of people. I've had to try to hunt them down. I know you're probably watching Ryan Trelecky. I'm telling you, man.
Hey.
You get time?
Yeah, Ryan Trelecky. You know Ryan Trelecky's a Viral Brand guy.
Is he?
He runs Viral Brand. So was a kid.
Perfect.
Yes.
Now, I want to get him on because to this day, I want to ask him. He probably doesn't even remember, but the one thing that stood out, because he's older than me, and I remember him always like one of the fast guys, you know?
Yeah.
And he was kind of an imposing dude, too. He wasn't one of the little, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I remember, what year was that? Kevin Windham and Ricky Carmichael were battling at Washougal, and they lapped Trelecky. And apparently, Carmichael thought Trelecky got in the way. So on television, after the moto, Carmichael pulls up next to him and grabs him, start yelling at him. I'm like, Carmichael, you're this big, and here's Trelecky. And he just was calm as could be, just looking at him. I'm like, you probably got 60 pounds on Carmichael. What's he?
Oh, yeah.
He could have just lifted Ricky off his bike. And I just remember that he took it pretty just calm and collected. And Ricky was losing his mind, and they quickly get panned away, you know.
That is funny. I didn't know that. That was like 96?
No, it was after. No, I think it was early 2000s.
Was it?
Yeah, K-Dub was on a Suzuki.
So was that after he left? Because he was on Yamahas, then he went to Honda.
I don't have the best memory. I've been hit in the head a few times, but
boom, I'm the same deal. That's my excuse for almost everything.
But it was, Wyndham did, I believe, go 1-1 with Carmichael just right on him both times, though. But I just remember, because it was so funny when you realize, oh, the television crews are trying to catch the moment. Oh, maybe we shouldn't catch the moment. Because there's moments we should probably not put on television.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Sometimes.
Then again, maybe we should.
People like MMA, right?
Yeah, but let's not blend them. They did show the Weston Pike clip over and over and over.
And I actually just saw it recently.
You would think they had to have slipped him some money because they fined him. He had to miss the next race, right? When he.
I don't remember how all that went down, to be honest.
Okay, who was he hitting on? Freezy.
Freezy. Yeah.
So he was punching Freezy.
Yep.
On the helmet, super effective.
Yeah.
But he was punching Freezy, and I believe he had to miss the next round. So the AMA bans him, but then plays the clip for years. I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's good TV.
I hope they gave him at least something for
I doubt. Like, no one felled? No.
So yeah, you got a little insider look at how racing goes. Not only were you a racer, but you got to be involved in a team. Yeah,
that was cool. You know, my racing career was, short. I mean, like 10 years, right? I raced Supercross for about 10 years and finished pretty well. My first race, my very first Supercross, I got 10th.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and I finished, and then of course I got 10th and then a 13th the next night because Seattle used to do 2 rounds. And then everyone told us the only reason I did that well is because no one came to Seattle because it was the middle of nowhere and there was nobody here. So my dad's kind of my dad's personality. He was like, we're going to LA, right? So we drove to LA and did that round and ended up getting a 13th down there with like 190 people or 180 some people tried to qualify in for 20 spots and ended up getting, I think 12th or 13th, something like that. So my career, I kind of thought I was going to be somebody, and then I was absolutely nobody, and which is like most people in motocross, right? But I got a chance then to move into the behind the scenes thing and really get a chance to run a team. And it started out like, every dad's always trying to help their kid out, right? So I was trying to find a ride for my son when he was turning pro and met the guys from Barn Pros. Steve Osland was nice enough to sit down and have lunch with me one day, and I kind of gave him a little bit of a sales pitch on my kid, and he'd already had Chris Howell on the team, and he had Connor Elliott, and so he said, "Well, we got spot for one kid, but it's going to be small. Help me out a little bit with some motor work." And I said, "Well, if you're going to do that, I'll do some trade-off with you." And so I did some social media stuff with him and helped with promoting the team, and kind of did some kind of set up some sponsors and stuff like that. So going into year 2, we sat down, and I happen to know Andre Laurent a little bit from OTFF. I don't know him real well, but I knew him a little bit enough to call him on the phone. He took my call, and I said, "Hey, do you have any semis that you'd want to lease?" Because he'd been leasing semis up in Canada to some teams.
Okay.
And so I called Steve and said, "Hey, I got this. I can get the semi for X amount of dollars. Try it out for a year with a real team type deal." And Steve's like, "Yeah, let's look at those numbers." And it'd be a week later, he called me, "Hey, I bought a semi." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so we brought the same team back. We brought Chris and we brought Connor back and we brought my son back that year. I happen to know the guys from Yamaha pretty well. And so I reached out to one of the guys down there at the Yamaha deal. We were able to put together a Yamaha sponsorship program for that year. Everyone was riding the new YZs in 15. Had some really bad luck with the team. My son broke his arm at the Yamaha test track about a month and a half before round 1, which basically pretty much ended his racing career, that injury. Connor crashed a week before the event, punctured his lung. So we had to find a replacement rider for him, which ended up being Austin Ulrich. And so...
Wait, Aussie rode for you guys?
Yep.
I don't remember this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep, rode for us he missed round 1, but then I think he was around 2, 3, 4. I think he rode the whole rest of the series for us. Awesome kid.
Why do I not remember this? Yeah.
Awesome kid. Made one main event at the end, got 12th, which was an awesome finish for his deal. Broke his wrist, I think, halfway through the season. Didn't really tell us about it. Finished the season off with a pretty hurt wrist. And that year just kind of didn't go real well for us. So Steve, looking at the next year, we able to gather some money now. We had gotten some results. We got a lot of stuff. We had a pretty good presence in the pits. Yamaha really liked what we were doing, and we went out and tried to find the next rider up, right? Trying to find guys that could be, the Austin Politellis, right? So we had Austin, and we had Scott Champion, and that year, I think we had 3 that year. I forget who the third rider was right now. Sorry, what that was. But we had those guys on there, and basically started out that season and just kind of Cole Martinez. Sorry.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah.
So we had Cole Martinez, Austin Politelli, and Scott Champion, and went out there and had some pretty good results. Bikes were pretty good. We bought A-Kit suspension, which was the same stuff that Star was running. We had pretty decent motors through that Dawson company we talked about a little bit earlier today, and really got a chance to really build a real team. I was up in the manager's tower every day. We had our headsets on. We're talking lines, talking lap times. It was the real deal. It was pretty cool.
So what's that like, going from someone who used to like go out and race in that to suddenly being the dude with the headset on, like trying to manage guys, watch them? Like, is it stressful, or is it like, this is kind of cool?
It was super cool, a little surreal, right? What was really interesting was trying to convey to the riders, because football coaches can't play football, right? Team managers can't race the motorcycles anymore, but you can still see things on the track from a racer's standpoint. And so convincing the riders that you kind of know what you're talking about, when they had, I wasn't a Lance Smale or even a Ricky Carmichael or anything like that, right? So to say, hey, you guys should be doing this, this, and this, or that, and that, it took them a while to earn their trust. Once you started to earn their trust, though, then you could actually have pretty good conversations between the mechanics, yourself, the riders after the practice sessions. Go in and talk to them and help them, right? Because they don't see, you can't, when you're racing, you don't see what everyone else is doing around you. And so you might be going through a rhythm section and going 2-3-3, and the fast guys are going 3-3-1 or whatever the deal is, right? And you can see that from the tower. But it was pretty cool because you got a chance to sit up there and like the year 3, we had Ricky Johnson coaching our team, working with our team guys.
Oh, it's gotta be cool.
It was super cool. So Johnson had a headset. He'd be up in the stands watching the races. He'd be talking to me. I'd be talking to the mechanics, right? And it was kind of a funny deal, and but it was pretty surreal because I'm on the phone. I'm on my headset with Ricky Johnson, who's telling me to tell Roger DeCoster that DeCoster doesn't know how to ride a motorcycle, right? And to tell him that he sucks. And then I'm like going, and Johnson's telling me like, hey dude, don't be a pussy, right? So I go to DeCoster, Mr. DeCoster, Ricky Johnson said you're kind of a puss. You tell Ricky, and I'm just like, this is way too much for me, man. I'm out. I had to move the other side of the tower just to get away from that. It was probably one of the most surreal deals because I'd be sitting up there with those guys, and those are all DeCoster and LaRocco and all these guys, and some of the guys I raced with, some of the guys I didn't, but they were all like legends, right? So it was pretty cool. I did have a pretty awesome experience though. I was standing in the tower right behind PC when Osborne took out Savacci. Oh, let me tell you, there was bits and pieces of iPad everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a and he jumped. The tower was like 10 or 11 feet off the ground. He jumped out of the tower. I don't think he touched the ground. I don't think he touched the stairs the entire way down. It was nuts. It was pretty crazy.
There was a bit of tension. I remember I'm just watching from TV and hearing from a couple people there, and there was some tension over that whole thing.
Oh, it was on. Yeah, that was no bueno if you were sitting right next to that guy. So,
that was, man, I forgot about that. That was intense. And yeah, last lap and everything, right? Like
last lap, last corner, basically.
That changed people's lives and careers.
Oh yeah.
Just one corner.
One corner. Yeah. The sad part was, I mean, nothing against Savacci, but I mean, he rode tight. That was his problem. Is he rode tight. If he would have just been loose, they never would have caught him.
Yeah.
But he rode really tight. And
well,
so,
I've been there.
Everybody's been there.
Well,
if you race dirt bikes, you've been there once.
The very last race I did, which sadly was in July, I did a flat track race.
Okay.
First time ever trying it.
Oh yeah.
And I did the worst thing possible. I hole shotted. And like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And I know like everybody behind me does know what they're doing. And I have no idea how I didn't go into the wall because I was tense. I screwed everything up, and I'm in the lead. And the more you realize you're screwing up, the more you screw up more, and it just goes downhill from there. I can only imagine, and this is at a little small flat track race. I can only imagine like a supercross race. Like I get it. When people make mistakes and everyone blasts them online, like, man, have you ever been there? Have you ever even led a local B class race and know how stressful that is? Like trying to breathe, and manage that. Like
Supercross was like that for me. I got a third place or fourth place start at Seattle one year, and that was probably the best race I had. But all my qualifiers, if I got a good start in a qualifier, I didn't start riding good till I got to about fifth. Once I got into fifth place, I could kind of relax. But if I could see the lead guys, and it was a really stupid mental thing with me.
I think a lot of people have that. My best races is when I kill my bike on the line.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, damn it.
Or you crash in the first corner and don't get hurt, but you just pop your bike back up and you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, you have nothing to lose. You're a little ticked off.
Yep.
And I've actually, I raced PIR one time and let everybody go because like I'm rusty, I'm going to get hurt. Just let them go. And I let them all go. I did a little wheelie that lasted all of 10 feet. I'm like, okay, I just embarrassed myself. Okay, let's just go. And I went from last to first.
Oh, there you go.
But the next moto, I got hole shotted and I had a battle to the end to get the win. And I literally barely even won. Like, there's something to be said about relieving that stress. And I can only, I've never raced anything to the level of a supercross. I can only imagine what it's like, especially when you're like the points leader.
Oh.
And I mean,
yeah,
that's got to be so much weighing down on you as you're trying to just go.
Yeah. I don't know how those, personally, I'm a mid-pack guy my whole life, right? So to go to a supercross and try to be a points leader, I don't know how they handle that pressure.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
You got to be like a robot because that is a lot weighing down on you. You have, I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of, let's say, Tomac. You're chilling there at the trailer, And there's people all around when they let everyone in the pits. Ooh, you're flooded. There's people who want to talk to you. You have sponsors. You have new potential sponsors. You have all this, like, there's so much flooding your brain. And people, like come down on these pro riders for being rude to them. Like, do you know how many people they have to talk to on a weekly basis? Monthly, year? Like, think of how many people want to just say something to them.
The one thing that I will say when it comes to racing though, and everybody has this experience, right? When you go to the track, you kind of know where you're going to be that day, right? You might have a day where you feel a little more on in practice or off, but you kind of generally know where you are. One thing that people kind of miss about racing, especially at the pro level, is a lot of times these kids will have raced with these guys all the way through their amateur careers. They all kind of move up at the same time. Then they get inundated with the older pro guys that are, maybe aging out or, got kind of wily, but they kind of know where they sit, especially in the 250 class, which I think the 250 class, they've really ruined that class by letting people stay in that class forever and a day, right? That really should be a feeder class like it was designed to be. I was guilty of that because I stayed in it for 3 or 4 years because it was easy. I could make main events. I could be in the race, right? But they really should have pushed people to get out. But what's really interesting, but when you think about it, Tomac's been racing all these guys for what? How many years now, right? He kind of knows where he sits. He knows that if he clicks in, he's going to be a top 3 guy every moto, right? And I think that a lot of that stuff, championship stuff like what he's dealt with before, I think that's one thing. But I think when you get to be like the Jason Andersons and you've won your championship, and like Anderson's, I think that guy he wants to go race dirt bikes. He knows he can be a top 5 guy, right? Go out and race dirt bikes. If he wins a championship because everything kind of falls in place, great. But if not, he's going to go make a great paycheck every single weekend, be competitive. And I know it sounds funny, but I don't think those top guys always push themselves as hard as they can. You watch them ride and how precise they are. They push themselves, don't get me wrong. But they ride in that comfort zone, which is way faster than normal human, right? But in their world, they're in that comfort zone, and they're not pushing themselves. You see guys like Cicerillo that are trying to get to that level, right? He is fast. But he keeps pushing himself, and then he hits the deck. Pushes himself, hits the deck. Well, as he matures and he gets to that level, that kid, I could see Cicerillo being 2-3 years of Carmichael's type of dominance if he can stop the crashing.
If he can stop the crashing, which James Stewart never did, but he still got championships.
But Stewart was different. He was different though, because Stewart would do things that were crazy.
Well, hey, we've seen Cirillo do some pretty wild. When he gets in that moment, it's that battle moment.
Yeah,
he uncorks. He just does whatever it takes. He thinks he can get into the spot. Like I never really liked him, but the more I heard interviews and the more I watched him ride, and saw him kind of in like difficult situations.
Yeah,
I like that kid.
Yeah,
I'm a fan. I got to say I'm a fan. He's in his podium interviews. Okay, we're going to go into this for just a moment. 98% of the people racing Supercross have zero personality on the podium.
Yeah.
And it bugs me.
Yeah.
And if I was a company, I got like 3 guys doing Supercross, and none of them have won a race yet. Okay, we'll put it that way.
Okay.
At least like a main event.
Right.
But like if I had a guy, let's say one of my guys, Carson. Let's say Carson Brown wins a 250 race.
Okay.
I want him just to talk like a dude and maybe throw a joke or two. And if he plugs me, make something interesting instead of standing there straight backed, monotone. I'd like to think you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understand he's doing his job, but why does it seem they have zero personality on the podium? That's what I like about seeing Cirillo. That's actually what kind of won me over, is he just kind of talks.
Yeah.
He kind of just talks. Sometimes he says some goofy things, but it's whatever pops in his head. He's talking like a human.
Right.
I like that. I wish more people did that.
Yeah.
Go watch some MMA people, like when they, like UFC guys, when they win.
Yeah.
One guy took his pants off.
Oh, really?
He's like, I'm sorry. He just takes it off. He's down to his boxers. He's like, I just fight. He's like, I'm a big man. That was a long fight. I'm hot. It's hot in here. And you couldn't stop laughing. It was the most ridiculous thing in the world. He's standing in his boxers doing an interview in front of whoever's like 1 million people watching. But like you remember that.
Yeah. So I used to do this USA Motorsports stuff. There were monster trucks and arena cross. And I used to travel around the West Coast and up into Canada. And we used to do this event in Utah every year. And I'd win my qualifiers almost all the time. It was me, Whipple, a couple other guys, and we would travel around. I had the #1 plate. It was pretty funny. But we got interviewed all the time. We had to do press. And so I used to do this stuff with Whipple. Never knew when we go to press if I was going to go MMA on him, right? Or WWE or whatever. And so, we'd have a couple reporters there, and they'd be asked the questions of the monster truck guys, and then they come to us, and I'd be like, well, he took me out last weekend, man. I guarantee you I'm going to break his arm this weekend. I'm going to take him out so hard, right? And then Whipple would just be standing there kind of with his face like, oh, crap, now what's going to happen, right? And it was pretty funny. And Utah was funny because the Sonics were really big at the time when we went back there. And so I had got into it with one of their local guys, and I'd pretty much stuffed him to take the win of the heat race. And so I decided to, because it's fun to talk on the microphone, I got done with my little interview, and the track's great, and it was a huge trade with a rubber band start. I mean, how great really was it, right? But it was funny because I turned to the microphone, and I turned to the guy, and I just said, I'm really excited for the main event. I'm going to go out there and kick everyone's butt, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, go Sonics. I got booed all the way back into the tunnel. Got booed when I came out of the track. Got booed when I won the race. It was like the best day ever. They need to do that more in Supercross because people get involved.
Oh, you need to do something. Everyone seems so stiff, so monotone. Yeah, they're not invested. They don't really throw out much, like, they all seem like robots, boring robots. And I'm sorry, that's not helping out your sponsors.
So you know what they need? A whole bunch of Donnie Proctors.
We'd probably get more viewers for Supercross if we had a whole bunch of Donnie Proctors out there. Yeah, Donnie, I'm sure you're watching
he's
too,
supposed
man.
to be watching because he told me I had to throw out his name at least once during this thing. And whatever Donnie tells me to do, I do, as you see.
That was one of the most entertaining podcasts because I wasn't ready for honestly anything that we talked about. And I got to say that was one of the more entertaining ones I have done. I've had some fun ones. We've had some wild ones. That one was pretty funny. He really wants me to buy one of his vintage bikes.
Oh, he's got some cool vintage stuff.
I have two. That's enough.
Yeah.
I have a SL70.
Oh,
1973 cool. SL70.
Yeah.
And I have a Elsinore.
Oh.
77.
Do you have your very first bike you ever bought?
Nope.
I got my very first. You asked me what my first bike was in the 20 questions. I still have that bike in my garage.
I did buy back my favorite bike that I built back in 09. I found and rebought.
Oh, really?
It was so my goal back in the day in pit bikes was to beat Dwayne Brown in a stock 50 race.
Oh, okay.
And I built the bike that I thought, let's be real. Dwayne's not exactly running stock components on anything.
Right.
And I built a bike that was as cheating as I could go with my pocketbook. And he just left me off the starting line. Just, whoa. But I did everything to that thing. And it was my mini Moto SX bike. Sold it in 2010.
Yeah.
Bought it back last year.
Oh,
I found it. Just randomly I found it in Bend.
Oh,
I got it back.
Like on eBay or something?
I think it was Facebook.
Facebook?
It's
wow.
like, got it back. So that was exciting. Now, we're going to have to get out of here in a few minutes, but I can't let you go before throwing out my idea for motocross. I've done this to a few people.
Okay.
You can tell me if I'm insane, but you have far more experience in the national motocross and supercross world. So I have a theory on what would make outdoors more interesting.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to hear it.
Okay. One, I think we should really encourage all the tracks to do amateur days.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
all of them.
Yep.
Two, I think they should televise the amateur days on we have these Gold Pass things, a lot of like MMA guys, everyone's going to something.
Yep.
Online subscription, keep it cheap, and just use your B-level guys. You don't have to bring in the good guys, just bring in some guys like me. We announce races, throw us a few $100 and some good snacks, and let us sit down and talk races all day and televise, you could find people easy to do that.
Yeah.
Find some B-level announcer guys to cover amateur days. Do it online subscription, even free. Just do it free and get some sponsors.
Yeah.
And so really encourage the amateur days, because people will show up if they know they're going to be on the same channel, even if it's an NBC like knockoff or whatever, on the same kind of thing as the big guys.
Yeah.
And then 20-minute motos, 3 classes instead of 2, add in a 125 class.
Oh, absolutely.
And
So,
you're not allowed to race the 250s until you're over 18.
so they tried that. So they made the rule in, what year did Roxon come to the U.S.?
Oh,
They
boy.
changed the rule back for Roxon when Kenny Roxon came here because he was 16.
But we have a class now. But see, that's the thing. 16 to 18,
Yep.
ride the 125s. You can
Yeah.
be any age to ride the 125s.
Oh, I think it's a great
But
idea.
let them go ahead and kind of develop into their bodies. You can only, from 16 to 18, ride the 125s.
So I like that idea. And I think if you wanted to, and this is, I am a bit of a motocross purist. I do like the idea of the 2-moto format.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make motocross appealing on the mass market side, you need to go to a qualifier main event situation. It should be 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes, 1 moto. That guy, that's the winner. Supercross style, right? You have 3. I'd go back to 3 classes. I'd have the 125 class on race day, 250 class, 450 class. I raced 500 nationals for a couple of years.
Oh, you're a beast.
And I'll tell you it's cool. I mean, that having that 500 class was cool. They were monkeying with it at the time. So you'd have a 125 class and then a 250 class for half the season, and then I think they had the 500 class for the other half of the season. And Washougal, a couple of years they ran the 250 class, and then I think a couple of years they had the 500 class there. But that's what I would do. I think that'd be great. And the televising thing, I think, would be. I buy that gold pass every year, so I can.
Yeah,
watch,
I do too. I
can
do
watch
too.
it.
I'm a sucker.
Oh, but it's great because I can watch it on my phone. I can watch
Yes.
I can watch it at my house. We cut cable this year, and when we cut cable, my wife and I really vacillated back and forth whether we're going to cut cable. We did. It's been the best thing we've ever done, and that gold package thing is just super cool.
So yeah, offer some amateur stuff. And do you think racing would be better if we had 20-minute motos? Do you think it would be more intense?
No.
There's purists that are going to swear that no, we need the longer ones, and pretty much everyone who has raced. But I know a lot of guys, a lot of privateers who just simply settle in because they ain't got the cardio to go race pace the whole 30 minutes.
Well, but
and I've had people on the show that tell me like I think they settle in more. You put on a 15-minute race, you're going to see bar banging people going a little wilder, and the 125 class. You have to be a wild man to win a 125 class.
Well, 120.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, 125 class. You can't really settle in on a 125. They just don't allow you to do it. 250 class and 500 class, you definitely settle in a little
Yes.
bit. But it's not going to change. It's not going to change the racing that you get because 15 minutes or 20 minutes, those guys are going to you settle in the first 3-4 laps anyways. It's pretty much what happens right now. You ride hard for the first couple laps, you settle in
So
a
what
little
would
bit.
make for better television? As for people who maybe have owned a bike a few times, I mean, if you think about it, most of the people watching Supercross and motocross don't race.
No, absolutely. Well, motocross, so here, demographic-wise, I don't mean to start sounding like a sales guy, but I did this for the Supercross team, right? Demographic-wise, you get a much more core audience in motocross. Okay, much more guys that are riders, racers, that kind of stuff. You still get a lot of enthusiasts, where Supercross is a much wider net.
Yes.
But the
How do you make motocross more exciting, more viewers?
You're going to have to you got to shorten the physical watching time. Like what they're doing right now, they're already prepping us for it. They're prepping 1-moto events, right? So when you watch it on TV, you only get 1 moto. If you think about it, right? So if you watch like on the gold, I think the gold pass you get all the motos, but if you watch the normal casts on TV, like on CBS or whatever it is, you're only getting second motos. And so they are kind of already working that way. But the reason you do that is because it's become simple, right? You don't have to do the math. I prefer the 2-moto format add it together.
Same.
Right? But I think if you're talking about a TV package, right? And the guys that race Supercross, or motocross at that level, the problem that we have, like a team, you can't pencil it. You cannot make outdoor nationals pencil for a team. There's too much travel. There's too many, if you got 3 riders, that gives you, it's not just the riders, but if you got 3 riders and you have semi, right? You're going to travel to do the West Coast Supercross series. You can mount your truck or park your truck in LA. Mm-hmm. You can hit those first few rounds. You don't travel much. Your riders are typically in that area, right? You don't have airfare. You don't have hotels. You don't have any of those additional costs. Mm-hmm. As soon as you go to Texas or any of those other rounds, now you got hotels and airfare and rental cars, right? You got food. Now your costs explode. Well, the Outdoor Nationals is all exploding costs. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, this is not a conversation that I sat down with Coy Gibbs when we were trying to work. We were going to have them do our motors, and had this exact conversation about the Outdoor Nationals. It's too expensive, and the problem is we're talking about 2 kind of different things, but to get enough riders to follow these things and to have a privateer following you can kind of get behind as well, right? You have to make it more affordable. It's just not affordable to do. And the sponsor money's not there because sponsors don't want to spend the money. So
we're going to go into this more because
right.
I got more questions, but we're going to have to get out of here because our time is up. We have our after show though.
Okay.
And I got more questions and I got some ideas.
All right.
I'm
Sorry
really
for
curious.
being so boring.
No, I think we're getting some good stuff. So if you guys want to get some Viral Brand goggles, check them out. Facebook Viral Brand, and it's viralbrand.com.
It's theviralbrand.com.
Oh, the Viral Brand.
Yep, theviralbrand.com.
Theviralbrand.com. Instagram viral_brand. Check out the goggles, and you guys got a few different lines now.
Yep.
And you got a little bit of casual wear. I'm assuming
because I'm t-shirts,
I'm running a
hats.
hat right now, so
that looks good on you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I like it.
I don't normally run the flat bill, but I've kind of gotten used to wearing it now.
I like the flat bills. I'm not gonna lie. But you guys check out Viral Brand, and of course, if you want to check out the podcast 110 Clothing, we are going to be branching out in the next couple weeks to our own website for Moto Mondays. So I'll be announcing that in the next week or 2, hopefully before Christmas. And of course, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Moto Monday, and be sure to check out Bobby P Media, who puts this baby on. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll be back in a little bit for the after show and talk more about motocross.
Motocross.
Outdoor Nationals, more specifically.
Good, I like it.